Tere! Good afternoon. I know it's after lunch, so let's do a bit of exercises first before we get to the theme, all right? It's going to be really, really simple. So if I call out something that applies to you, you just stand up. Like, who's Estonian here? Estonians. All right, give yourself an applause. All right. I was afraid that I'm seeing too many Estonians here. So who's from abroad? Awesome, you rock, all right. Nobody's clapping. Come on, guys. Who is in Estonia for the very first time? All right, you rock. Who's from, who doesn't live here, but who's been here more than once? So twice, thrice, whatever? You are veterans. You rock especially. All right. Everybody who just stood up, whether you're here for the first time or second, third, fourth, whatever number of times, and if you don't live here, you can consider yourself still to be very special because you are officially part of 0.01% of the world who's been here physically. So you can, something to brag in a dinner party, I hope. I have a good chance of being the warm-up guest speaker for the next speaker, but I'll be happy to talk a bit about, I was asked to talk about what's in the roadmap for Estonia. I'll go back a bit to history, not too much, because many of you have heard me or someone else talk about it. You've heard our president this morning and so forth. But I'll mostly speak about what are we building next, and a big part of what we're building next actually comes from Mart, so I won't be sort of covering that, and I'll leave all that to you, but I'll speak about the other things. Now, objectives, goals, roadmaps. So why have we been doing things digitally and trying to make the most of digital tools and tech in Estonia for the last 20 plus years? What have been our goals? Quite frankly, there's been a few of them. The first one, we are so bloody small. So we have had to make use of every chance we have with our 1.3 million people to be as efficient as we can, as effective as we can in both the wider economy as well as, of course, the public sector. And that has been the goal that, by the way, we've also seen happen, as you see sort of a few bits of evidence here. From sector to sector, from policy to policy, agency to agency, we have seen those efficiency benefits actually materialize. So we are basically able to do more as a government, more as a society, for the amount of taxes we collect, for example. And by the way, in terms of tax collection, we are the most efficient in the world. Again, largely because of the digital tools we employ for that. Our queues are a bit shorter in the hospitals. The fact that we sign anything and everything throughout the whole economy on digitally and not on paper, saves us at least a work week each year, we estimate. So efficiency has been our goal. But not just that. The other thing, and again, I'm speaking really from the impacts we have also seen, not just desired for. We have seen that digital solutions indeed give an improved or give a better business environment. There are many factors why it is good for a startup to start here, to grow here in Estonia, but they often quote among the top one of them as well, saying, look, it's so easy to start a company, it's so easy to run a company here. So basically the fact that, again, I can go online, get a company up and running in just a few hours, the fact that, after that, all the reporting I have to do, I can do, and not only, by the way, not only I can do, I have to do online, digitally somehow, makes it so much easier for me to be done with red tape, be done with bureaucracy that inevitably will be there. And we'll talk about a few next steps in this regard too. So this contributes to there being more entrepreneurship. More entrepreneurship means more growth, taxes, jobs, so forth. All the way to e-residency, which we offer today, which means that we are inviting entrepreneurs from around the world to set up shop and run the companies through Estonia. We are enabling entrepreneurship on a global scale. That brings more revenue in. So basically, we've seen that not only are we more efficient, but we actually stand to gain economically from digital services and digital government we build up. And last but not least, you don't often see this in policy documents, but fundamentally, I think that's what has been driving us in many ways. We make life easier for people. We save time for people. The fact that I don't have to go and queue to submit some application for some benefit. The fact that, only if I get married or want to get divorced, or only if I want to sell or buy a house, I actually have to physically go somewhere at all. This gives me so much value in my life. That's time I save that I can spend on being with my family, learning some new things, being more productive in my job or, in the economy. That time saved leads to many, many other sort of well-being and societal outcomes in the end. So this sort of efficiency and the empowerment we bring to people is no means a lesser goal itself. So if these have been the goals, and these remain the goals, very sort of widely and sort of philosophically speaking, so what have been the roadmaps? If I go back to history, for us it really started, I would say, and I think I'm in a way contextualizing history here, or trying to make sense of our journey. In many ways, Estonian digital journey hasn't always been a very clear-cut, strategy-based approach. It's often been experimentation, seeing what works, let's try this or that, let's see what works, and then scale and make that into strategy. We've been very sort of, for the lack of a better word, agile as far as governments can go in this regard. But if I contextualize looking back, the very first roadmaps were, of course, laying the foundations, laying the basics, the identity, X-road for data sharing, first core registries, first core, the most useful services and applications that people could use that solved some of the biggest pain points that people have in their daily lives. This was the roadmap initially for the, to get going, because everything else sort of comes from that. We started on the one hand building up, yes, first things you could do online as an entrepreneur, as a citizen, at the same time laying the building blocks that then really became the foundation that all the rest of roadmap was built on. Like I said, identity, X-road, so forth, that all services, all agencies could make use of as shared platforms, and thus digitization of different agencies, different sectors, different services became so much faster, cheaper, easier for them, that we basically unleashed a wider, I don't want to say wave, but the next roadmap of our digital journey, which was from area to area, be it health, be it justice, be it environment, be it police, and so forth, to now start making use of applications in full scale. So literally the next years meant that from ministry to ministry, agency to agency, that was like exactly attempts of massive digitization, trying to take the procedures we have, the burdens we put on people through bureaucracy, and make use of digital tools to make them much easier. Also reforming the back office. So yeah, police men and women in the police car, now if they had a chance to have access to data while patrolling on the street, they could do their job much more effectively. So really, mainstreaming it across the government, bringing it to all different areas was the roadmap then. From there on, for the next few years, we sort of kept on the same track, but in some ways we started running out of low-hanging fruit in some ways, which meant that, after some point, if you've digitized most of the existing procedures to a certain level, you hit a bump, a ceiling, right? Which means that either you have to come up with something completely new, or it's a constant iteration, which is not sexy at all, but it has to be done anyway. Of course, you have to constantly keep improving and taking the service to the next level as technology moves ahead, but at the same time, of course, because people's expectation moves ahead as well. They want you to perform better and better and better all the time. So, but these years still brought quite a few sort of new directions for us as well, like e-residency, which was still the main and the only one in the world to offer, like setting up, for the first time in the world, we have countries sharing fundamental platform that the governments are built on. So this is Estonia and Finland, hopefully soon joined by Faroe Islands and Iceland, developing jointly together the X-road, the data sharing platform that our governments use. So a few things like that. But still, we have had a few challenges we have to keep addressing. We are nowhere near done with our digital government and making use of the tech that exists today, as well as the tech that only is emerging for tomorrow. So what is in our roadmap? I'll jump a few things. First of all, our roadmap really is about trying to see how can we radically still keep changing our services, even if we have tapped the low-hanging fruits. We can make use of course, it's not that we have made every use of technology there is today. Still, we have quite a few services where we haven't been as thorough with reform, where perhaps exactly got stuck in changing the laws a bit. We could have done way further even with today's technology, but fundamentally, we've covered them. So how to take to the next stage? For us, most of the answer is actually not technological at all, but technology and making use of technological trends will also be at hand there, to give you a teaser. I will speak about 3 directions we are working on now. First of all, even if everything you have to do, you want to do when it comes to bureaucracy with government, you can do online. The thing in our setup is that the quality of user experience, the quality of the services is rather uneven, because the capacity to build them in a decentralized setup is rather uneven too. So which means that you can get an awesome digital service that doesn't really give you much headache at all from one agency, and then a complete crap from the other one. So how do you solve that? Again, in a setup where every ministry is a digital ministry, every ministry is in charge of their services in their field. Well, our thinking is very simple. We could be working on those services one by one, trying to have better user design, stuff like that. But actually, we know a few things. The best user experience is when I don't have to come across the government at all, when stuff happens for me. At least that's, I think, that's what we know most Estonians would say. If stuff is taken care of, I'm not burdened with, let's say, going to even digitally submit something, so forth. That's perfect. I just go on with my life. If I'm an entrepreneur, yes, I have to, or there's a digital option for me to send in reports online. But why are they there in the first place? If my child is born, if I use another example I often use, yes, I can get all the things I want to or need to done from the hospital bed the same day before I leave the hospital with a new baby. But why are these things there in the first place? Why do I have to apply to name the baby, or why do I have to apply to get some benefits? So the thinking is, perhaps if that's the desire, if the best user experience is one where I don't have to actually go through an interaction at all, almost at all, why don't we design the services this way? And then we don't have the issue that we have uneven quality of services. If stuff just happens, it's the same quality everywhere. Stuff just happens. So we have taken a lead with our CIO office and in collaboration with many, many agencies across the government. And now we're working to really redesign the services we have built up, the processes, to work in as seamless manner as possible. And we are designing and focusing on them by bundles around life events. Because most of interactions, I'm sure many of you know this anyway, most of need to interact with the government happens around certain things, events in your life. Like if your child is born, there will be 4 or 5 different service interactions at once. And you may not come across government for the rest of the year at all. If somebody dies in your family the same way, if you lose a job, if you start a company, that's when you deal with government and different parts of government all at once. And then again, you go for a long period of time without ever coming across the government at all. In Estonia, we know on average there are 3 interactions with the government per person. So 3 interactions, think about it, how little it actually is. But again, some people have 15 of them in 1 year. If they have those events, the others go without perhaps any. Okay, yes, almost everyone pays taxes, so 1 at most. So our point being, in terms of redesign, we have taken those events. We are now bringing agencies together. We have this actually going on live. And we are really tackling that around each and every life event, at most with 1 interaction, you have to get your things done. At most with 1. So even if there are 5 different agencies behind an event, they have to collaborate, they have to design, we have to lead the processes to be designed to happen in a bundle. And our goal is for those interactions to actually start proactively by the government, not by you. So if I use the example of childbirth, which we are working on now, so as I said before, there are different applications, things I can do online before I leave with the hospital. But the government actually knows that the baby was born because hospital has made an entry to population registry. The kid gets the identifier, the number, so to speak, the digital name, as we call it, because immediately digital health record starts. Birth is a medical condition, right? So, and from there on, the kid's electronic health record starts. So we know the fact. We also know the parent, because that connection, at least the mother, that connection has been made by hospital the same way. So if we know this, why do we wait for the parent, who has lots of other things to do, even to admire the new baby, to come to us like, government, can I please name my baby Siim, or can I please get this money that I have an entitlement to? If we know the fact, we could just send you an email. In Estonia, you would have an official email anyway, so, when you get an ID, send you an email and say, thank you for the new citizen. And then we ask in the same sort of interaction, what's going to be the name? We ask you, we don't wait for you to come to us. We can offer you ideas, but you don't want them probably. The bank accounts you want the monies to be sent to, we know everyone literally will apply. Why do we wait for you to come to apply? I mean, everybody wants this money. We could just start it sending your way. And by the way, we might have your preferred tax account already on record in the tax office. Sorry, bank account on record in tax office. We might ask, hey, that's your account number on the record. Do you want us to send the money to this one? That's it. And the third thing probably has to be kindergarten lines. So in Estonia, at least in Tallinn, you want to queue up your kid in the kindergarten as they're born, because then they reserve the spot. So based on your official address, we can suggest you, hey, these are the 3 nearest kindergartens with the shortest queues. So, do you want us to place the child there? So we ask you proactively those questions, which we right now wait for you to send us some requests and applications in. The same way it could happen around, like I said, death, losing a job, whatever like that. The hard part here is not technology. We have all the technology down. We have strong identity. We have strong data sharing. We have all these bits. The hard part has been exactly bringing those agencies together, having them bundle up their services like that, be jointly responsible for that, and exactly offer it out as a coherent user experience. That's why it has exactly taken us to go in there and lead this. Now we have a government mandate for this, because again, it's a coordination challenge, effectively, what I'm talking about here. Our plan is, this is the sequence of services we are working by. We have the first one live with the lead of Ministry of Justice. So now we have combined a few services around starting a company into one bundle already and working on the next ones. So the target is, yes, that we would have at least 7 of them fully live in 2020, by end of 2020, and the rest from there. That's the sequence of how we're starting to tackle them one by one. Of course, we don't just stop there. We are also trying to look into the events in entrepreneurs' life. So also for businesses, what are the major points of their life cycle that they come across government, how to make those happen again proactively in one interaction and as invisibly, as automatically as possible. At the same time, and going all the way to what Mart might talk about, which is to say that for companies, if you would consent to us have access to your data, perhaps exactly we wouldn't bother with reporting ever at all, again. So making services invisible, because the best user experience is when stuff happens automatically. That's the main thing in our roadmap right now. When it comes to technology, as I said already, we have the technology actually there to make the government happen proactively and so forth. But we fundamentally see that there's one particular set of technologies that could allow to take that even to the second level. And that's, of course, artificial intelligence. Even with the current status of AI development in the world, the sort of, the simplest machine learning models and use cases there are, we see that our government can be and is more effective in terms of delivering the services from back office side, as well as exactly being proactive and in the direction that I said to make services invisibly happen. I'm not just speaking theory here. We have in Estonia now it's changing every week, basically. 16 different use cases live right now. So there are 16 different AI simple applications being used by different agencies to really perform better as a government. Whether it is, the city of Tallinn trying to understand, okay, where's the traffic loads on the streets by basically having trained machines to recognize cars from video feeds. Whether it is our cybersecurity agency keeping and monitoring what's happening in the networks to find out incidents and intrusions. It's our unemployment office matching now job seekers, so unemployed people, with employment opportunities. And what we already see, and this is, by the way, a very good example, the model has been trained and originally built up in the Netherlands. But we have taken basically something that exists, reapplied it here, trained it with our conditions, and now also in Estonia we have the success rate of machines in terms of job matching is greater than for experienced human advisors it was. So basically machines are doing a better job than people were in terms of matching those together. Whether it's a very specific use case we have, I'll jump to the next slide actually. So the there's a lot of potential to make use of AI in all different inspections. So all different places where we have to employ people right now to go and inspect or check out something to ensure that compliance is there. So example we have is that we had people drive around the country to see if agricultural subsidies, grants, are being used in a proper way. For example, there are some specific grants that are paid for you to keep your grassland in order, that basically cut grass regularly. So somebody had to go and see, hey, has it been cut? Drove somewhere, made a note, then drove a few weeks again. Now, they train a machine to look at satellite images and basically detect from satellite images automatically if grass cutting is happening or not. Inspectors only go in physically if there's any sort of suspicion that it hasn't been happening, to verify and recheck, basically. We are saving in that agency a few persons' worth of work time just by application like that. Or, again, simple things. We have had quite a few people employed in just basically customer feedback. Again, chatbots is one of the major applications of AI right now all through the economies. Same thing in our stats office, where we have just recently went live with a chatbot for customer service that, to answer sort of simple kind of questions about where to find statistics and not. Or whether it's in health area, where we have only started with sort of AI applications now, where basically there's been pattern detection done to find out which sort of patients with non-communicable diseases might be having some further illness risk. And so basically we could have more prevention or more targeted care for those patients already by GPs and professionals. So my point being, these are all things that, it's not theory, these are practical things we employ, practical places where, because we employ this technology, like I said, we are saving people's time. There's less officials we have to employ or less specialists we have to employ for particular tasks. And for us, that's perfect. Because again, in a country of 1.3 million people, where we're also aging fast and used to be shrinking, now it's been growing a bit, any person we can save for a more productive job is awesome. It's already quite a bit of value generated or value added that we can gain. So if we can employ machines to do, all the things that they can for us, we can not only grow and be better and be more effective as an economy. So for us, yes, there will be a retraining challenge, so a structural mismatch we have to meet, but fundamentally we have only to gain from this. And that is why we won't just stop with the existing use cases we have. I mean, the AI and making our government really make full use of artificial intelligence is another big direction in our roadmap right now, to take it to all different areas horizontally and try to unleash this efficiency reserve we have in terms of exactly making better use of the stuff we have. How we're doing this, we could talk long about this. There's a lot of evangelism involved. There's a lot of training involved. We do a lot of ideation with different agencies. But the other thing we're looking from a technological point of view, we are trying to see, can we somehow provide all different agencies with certain common components? So literally, some core libraries, some core models, so forth, that they can then retrain with their data to be applied in their agency. So perhaps, for example, can we have a generic chatbot engine that you then reapply in your agency and for your particular customer set, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel? So basically, if Estonia benefits so much from shared platforms on our digital journey in the past, then basically we're trying to see, can we have also shared platforms in an AI time and agent space? And just as a small teaser, especially for the Estonians, in just 1 week, we're actually coming out with the national AI policy proposals. So there will be more talk on it, at least in the Estonian audience, sort of soon enough. Now, my last point, to finish up sort of on time. So fundamentally, a lot of how we have built up our digital government so far, of course, has been in close partnership with the private sector. So we have always worked closely with private sector as our partners, vendors, and so forth. But going forward, I see that we have to open up clearly more and apply more like open innovation as a direction, where we get all kinds of ideas in as much as we can, all kinds of new solutions in as much as we can. And that requires us to actually fundamentally change a few things we have not done so far. For example, change how we build IT systems in the first place. So instead of trying to procure one big chunk of work at once, we have to see the IT architecture and do the commissioning in much more modular ways. Basically, procure a bunch of Lego sets and Lego bricks that then we can sort of apply together. If one of it fails, it can be replaced easier, as opposed to when we had to replace the whole system. If we need a new vendor, if there's a new technology, we can place another component like that. So basically, more microservice, more modular, just like how the best tech companies and services are in the private sector, it has to be our direction. Going along with this, but we also try to open up more what we have so that we could exactly have more sort of ideas, not just basically through vendorships, but also as sort of just services coming from the wider economy and talent pool and society itself. Open data is a no-brainer in that sense. We have been perhaps too slow in the past with this. We are now trying to fast catch up in terms of opening up more data sets, working strongly on data governance, that open data wouldn't be just a thing in itself, but a logical, natural part of the data work we do. And all the way to the code we have. So we have just started with the governmental code repository, where we sort of publish out the solutions, and we will be publishing out the solutions we have procured or will be procuring. It's so fresh, it still has only one. It just came out like a month ago, but that's the direction of travel. So that yes, we could have more contributions from a wider pool of participants and contributors. And this is all in the direction, to finish off, in what I fundamentally believe, that of course, yes, the objectives will still be the same in terms of being more efficient as a government, building up a better and constantly improving business environment, empowering people and bringing them efficiency in their lives. But I think going forward, there has to be a fourth objective as well. And if I look at the Estonian sort of economic opportunities in the big bad world, then our biggest opportunity is to be the place where new stuff is created, tried, and brought to the world. Government has a big part of this. If we open up our stuff as a platform, if we also enable this sort of GovTech innovation to happen. So we have to basically exactly be part of it and strive for the fact that, yes, Estonia would be a great place to be a testbed for the future. So that's all for me. Thank you, and that's our roadmap right now.
Thank you, Siim. We have a few questions. I got a couple. Don't you run away too quickly.
That's all right.
Now, we had one of the upvoted questions was, on one of your slides, I believe in the action plan, one of the profiles of a type of person was crime victim. Can you explain that more?
Yeah, so a very sad event that can happen in your life is that basically crime happens to you, right? Somebody steals from your car or, God forbid, for something worse, right? And again, that's a case where we see that then different agencies have to jump into action, one by one and one after another, right? Which we can sort of, again, rather make it easier for you. You're having a hard time anyway if you've just been sort of a victim of a crime. So we might as well make it easier that you don't have to then, even in a digital space, work with different websites, different agencies like that. They come together proactively for you and help you out when you need it most.
Okay, so it's not like a profiling of who could possibly be.
No.
It's what happens when a crime is committed to you.
Yeah.
Okay, he's looking at me like I'm a victim of crime. He forgets, I'm Australian. I'm the one committing the crimes. What are we talking about?
Always, right?
Always. Going along here, is it a little bit of a more philosophical question? With all these services and the profiles that we just spoke of, is it easier for Estonia to do this because we are a fairly racially similar country? We are not diverse in terms of our racial profile or diversity in that way, not yet. Not for better or for worse. We're not saying whether this is good or bad. Do you think that's a little bit easier for Estonia in that way?
I don't really have a good answer because we don't know an alternative, right? So but I'll answer differently. It's very hard for me to imagine a government service where the racial profiling and stuff would matter that much, right? Unless,
or maybe just people of very different backgrounds might have very different needs.
Even if we talk about stuff like image detection and so forth, I mean, we have to apply them to work in sort of all kinds of conditions, right? Which means that, I mean, even I would say the other way around, it actually would make it perhaps harder if you're too sort of homogeneous as a test base or database or as a community, right?
Okay.
So, and that is why another reason why I say that we fundamentally believe in terms of copying and learning what works. So that's why if I use the example in unemployment area, that's why we probably would use models and data sort of knowledge and like AI applications from other countries, for example, when it comes to image recognition, right? That we would exactly also recognize people with other racial backgrounds in a proper way, because we have to serve everyone in the end.
Interesting. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to do one more. We've got a bunch of very good questions here. Actually, there's maybe two more since we're getting through them. A political sort of question. This seems to be a fairly coordinated role. I mean, you are head coordinator of this, as your title would lead us to assume. How are you stopping different departments having too much autonomy to go in different directions and bump into each other? How are you stopping sort of one ministry or department head sort of getting their own gusto or not playing ball? And how do you get everyone to play nice?
Yeah, the governance or the coordination issue is always a tricky one, I think, in all governments. I mean, if I speak to also colleagues around the world, for us, in Estonia at least, the biggest tool we have, to keep the long story short, is money. So let's put it this way. I haven't seen a government or a government CIO or CTO or whatever around the world, or a digital minister around the world, if they don't have somehow some sort of say around where money goes, right, that effectively you can coordinate down the line. So in Estonia, that has meant that most of the works we do in terms of developing new services or going to new technologies goes through a central IT fund that, again, our office actually administers, that we fund the works of others. And so that means effectively that we can incentivize certain directions. For example, if we want agencies to really make use of machine learning, we say, hey, this is what we are prioritizing now. If you come with, let's say, with these sort of experiments, you might have a bit of a fast track, for example. Or the other way around, we can veto and block things. If you want to build up a next perfect registry and not use X-Road, we say, no, you can't do that. You have to play with the rules and the platforms we have.
You have that level of power, and that comes from the top down. You've been granted that by the sort of government or
essentially,
the laws.
Yes. And so what I'm saying is that it's not just Estonia. I haven't seen a country where, if the power of the budget is not there, so to speak, or power of the purse, where you can effectively do that. All the rest is just charm.
And that you have in spades, my friend. We're going to do one more question just to round it out. Can you talk a little bit more? Can you explain the concept of our cloud embassy and what are the most crucial, important criteria for establishing such an entity?
So data embassies for us is like the ultimate doomsday scenario preparation, right? In a sense that for whatever reason, should we lose the backups and the data centers we have here with us in our territory, right? I mean, they might even be down because of the cyber attack against them. So if there's basically enough sort of denial of service against them, data centers go down. How do we still keep operation as a government, as a country? Because for us, there's no more paper fallback. I mean, we have moved to the point where all we do is so digitally based that we have to see the fallbacks also in a digital realm. So what was the idea? It was essentially to say, but hey, that's what cloud is for, right? I mean, you have basically your own, backups in a way somewhere outside, right? But the problem is that with somewhere outside is that we want to have actually control about the most critical stuff in terms of technical sense, but also we want to make sure that our jurisdiction, our laws, our rules, our principles apply. So, but then we got the idea that, hey, but that's embassies. Embassies are our soil, for example, in Australia or wherever in the world. That's under international law, our territory. Unfortunately, to build up data centers in our embassies would be too heck of a project in terms of cost and the efficiency of it. So we basically, one thing led to another, got the idea, but perhaps we can have foreign-friendly allied governments give us data center space within their facilities that we then claim to be our territory. And so literally we set up our data center, or our data racks in abroad. Right now it's Luxembourg, with the government of Luxembourg, great partners of ours. We might be seeing about a second site at some point soon. But the point being, so we have our own data center facilities abroad, and we operate in a cloud function to keep backups there. Also moving to the point that where we might basically boot up the government from abroad if stuff comes to that.
Right, that's very... And I guess for myself, coming from Australia, that I would never think that such a thing would be needed, but I've come to understand that is, as absurd it might seem for the rest of the world, it's a very real concern here, or at least we remember those days, so it's enough to still inspire us.
I'll tell you what, I think the inspiration for the idea even came from Asia at the time, Japan, and the tsunami and the earthquake, and so basically the natural hazards and disasters, where, if Fukushima happened, they literally lost the servers of the municipality where the population count had been in. So they didn't even know whom to look for because, I mean, the copies were down. So whether it's a natural hazard, whether it's a geopolitical conflict, whether it's just basically cyber attack, there are many scenarios where this sort of ultimate, like I said, doomsday backup somewhere outside your immediate territory might be useful.
Okay, very interesting. Please, round of applause one more time
Thank
for
you.
Siim Sikkut, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.
Oh,
You get one of them.